Hello, and welcome to another edition of ALN Thursday at 3. Today, we've got Mike Santos, the program manager from KBR. Mike has talked with us before when he was the head of asset management for Denver Airport. So welcome back to Mike. But before we get started talking with him about next week's value and benefits from asset management, it's going to be focusing on transportation, and Mike has a lot to say about that. Before we get into our talk with Mike, we would like to thank our organizational members, Platinum member Onuma Inc. with Onuma System, then our patron members, Jacobs, ABS Quality Evaluations, Definitive Logic, and CGI. And of course, all of our organizational members, including CDV Systems, which is the sponsor of today's program. Thank you to CDV Systems. And our other organizational members. We got some great things cooking up with all of our members. And next week for ALN Thursday at 3, we're talking with Steve Whiten, again, a return visitor. We've talked with him in the past, and he's got excellent work to share from Calgary. He's in the municipality there. And then immediately following that, we'll be talking with Kimono Numa and Cyril Verlet, who will be describing the way they're building information model services to building owners can get information from the initial planning all the way through operations and into decommissioning. And we also have values and benefits from asset management program with our colleagues in Australia, the Asset Management Council. This is what Mike will be doing. He'll be joining the head of asset management for New South Wales, one of the states down there. And then July 13th, we've got 2 ALN senior fellows, and Jack Dempsey is also the ALN Board of Directors member. We'll be talking about the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine's strategies for renewing federal facilities. So we've got a lot going on. I'm not even telling you what we're doing in August. It's very exciting. And we really thank all of our organizational members and supporters, such as Mike Santos, who has supported us. He was a sole practitioner member of the ALN, and he is A55K certified, and he really likes that program, and that's kind of what turned him on to what we're up to and why he's so excited about engaging with us. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good, Mike. Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me here today, Mike.
So having you here today allowed me to make a very beneficial mistake. I said that the KBR Ikigai system was a software in the newsletter lead up to this. And we got people saying, you can't get a software certified. And it is not a software, it is a framework. And we're going to be hearing about the KBR asset management framework. It's called Ikigai. And I'm putting a link to press release in the chat box. And can you tell us, all right, so you were at Denver Airport, you had worked at KBR in the past, you decided to go back there. What was your reasoning? And we can use that as a lead in to KBR Ikigai.
Yeah, so quick introduction. Hi, everybody, I'm Mike Santos. I'm currently a program manager for KBR, formerly known as Kellogg Brown and Root. The company formerly known previously as Tents in the Desert and Great Defects in Iraq. The company has been through a great transformation over the last 5, 6, 7 years with the procurement and the absorption of Wiley. So we are now heavily in the science and space, federal space. We have a significant number of NASA contracts. We also still work with the DoD. And as Mike mentioned, we still work in Australia, have quite a vast Australia business unit that works with their MOD and their civil folks. So yes, that's me pretty much here at KBR, former director of asset management at Denver International Airport. For about 7 years, we stood up that asset management system there, along with the SAMP and all of its other initiatives. Previous to that, I was a senior project manager for Raytheon Polar Services. I spent 7 years in the United States Antarctic program. So that's another facet of the transportation.
As the asset manager, right?
As the individual driving asset management, yes. In the facets of which, yes. So anyway, reason why I came back to KBR is I was with KBR for 2008, 2012. I was an operations manager at that time, overseeing asset management programs and the promulgation of asset management throughout the corporation, including the U.S. Antarctic program bid that KBR put in and subsequently, unfortunately, came in second to Lockheed. Back with KBR today to participate in their business pursuits, whatever they'd like to have me do, whether it's NSF or NASA or DoD. And I am an active member of the asset management team at KBR that oversees, develops, and deploys the asset Ikigai asset management framework.
And that's why I'm really excited to be talking with you, because not only do you have this framework available for your clients, but you have used this framework internally and have had some of your sites ISO 55001 certified.
Yes, sir, that's correct. Yeah, so currently 4 sites certified, 3 in the Middle East and the Houston HQ. And we use asset Ikigai scope-wise. Well, to talk about it from a SAMP perspective, really, I mean, the SAMP and Ikigai apply to the asset management program in the readiness and sustainment business unit for KBR. We've got multiple business units. This is one of them that works with DoD and NASA. And it's limited to the requirements set forth with each specific contract for each project. So the best way probably to put it is we have the site certified in ISO 55000. We use asset Ikigai as a framework to employ that.
Excellent. So that everyone who got upset that I said a software certified, that explains it. And you've got some other sites that are underway also?
We do. We have approximately 10 other sites around the world. I'd love to share that, but unfortunately that's competition sensitive stuff that they won't let me talk about.
That's why I'm excited to have you, is
yes.
You're turning the mirror on yourself and you're doing it internally. And that's
Indeed.
very encouraging. And we're glad to share what little information you can about that. That's great.
Yeah, indeed. So like I said, DoD and NASA customers primarily, NAVFAC's another customer of ours. So we've got approximately 10 other sites that we're working with those operations managers and those operations personnel to implement asset management practice and eventually have those sites certified as well.
Excellent. So you indicated that the ISO committee has posted your certification. So I'm putting that up.
They have. So I'll ask the audience to beg our pardon. Time moves very quickly in the world of federal contract space. So we were certified at the very tail end of last year, and there was that little gap, that little oops. We didn't send this to the register board to advertise the fact that we are ISO 55000 certified in those sites. So that just occurred day before yesterday, I'm happy to say. So yeah, so it was quite simple. I mean, I sent them an email on Monday, sent them the information they asked for. We've got a couple of little tweaks we like to do to our register. But other than that, yes, sir, we're up there now. As Kellogg, Brown, and Root, by the way.
Kellogg Brown, and Root, which is what you were last year. This year, you are now KBR.
Correct.
Okay. So the U.S. Technical Advisory Group to ISO 55001 or 55000 also has a website with listings, and we will connect you with the people who run that website and you'll get further promotion of your certification.
Thank you very much for that.
Excellent. So can you give us a little bit of overview? The idea of a framework is, not clearly, it's purposefully loosely defined, but you have sent me a very good graphic. Can you explain us a little bit about asset ikigai through this graphic?
Sure. So as you can see by the tenets all surrounding the asset analytics radar plot, these are all hallmarks and tenets of traditional asset management, but with a twist. And the way that we look at asset management as a practice at KBR through the lens of Ikigai is that customers who have missions, critical missions obviously, have assets to mitigate risk. So what we promote predominantly is the risk management side of asset management. And I can't go too far in depth. If any of you
Not
would
in
like
30 minutes, certainly.
No,
Yeah.
no. But if any of you would like a demo of Ikigai, of course, reach out to me and I'll push that out to my BD folks. But at the end of the day, the risk management framework that Ikigai provides is very extensive. It's very detailed, and it covers the hierarchy of the asset base. So from that, I'll just move on to the next one. Reliability assurance. I mean, it is what it says it is. This is reliability analytics and predictive analytics when it comes to not just maintenance operations, but operations in general. So you have reliability assurance on the supply chain management side of the business, and you have reliability assurance, of course, on the maintenance side of the business, and you have reliability insurance on the capital recapitalization and capital investment side of side of the business as well. Site maintenance kind of speaks for itself. We take the information from our colleagues on sites, and we are CMMS agnostic, by the way. So our system is designed, our framework is designed to reach into whatever CMMS the customer has, pull out the pertinent information, put it into our asset analytics engine, and then create those reliability assurance metrics and predictive analytics moving into the AI and the machine learning world as well. Operational energy, it's in essence what that is you can't manage what you can't measure. I know that's a cliche, but at the end of the day, that's what we do. We look at the operational energy content from the site at various levels, and then we start looking at the sustainability and energy and sustainability metrics of that site, and what, in this case, the federal government expects. And then we guide the customer and the customer's mission going forward on how to meet their, if it's zero carbon or carbon neutral goals. So we also have that, and it's very IoT centric, by the way. So we're looking at all of those components within their site that they allow us to see. Mm-hmm. And then we take that information and push it out to them in a insights and decisions sort of framework. Finally, energy projects. This is so many companies are kind of stuck in this, what I would call this continuous improvement, best practices paradigm, and they get stuck. And they get stuck because the continuous improvement has a project, great. The best business practices, great, but they don't evolve. What we do in this energy projects module is we take all that information that we pulled out from our operational energy segment or tenet of this framework, and we actually produce a capital investment model for the customer to enhance their mission, and to, at the end of the day, it's about saving money on energy. So, and then finally at the top, you see, not finally, but you see project portfolio. So that is another facet of Ikigai. We actually track their projects in whatever measure and whatever type that they want to track projects. I'm a recovering project manager myself. So whether they use EVMS or whether they use just simple predecessor successor Gantt chart type project management, we can accommodate that. Capital planning, that's the capital plan, right? So that's the capital reinvestment in the plan, long-term, short range, immediate needs, kind of all in. So that's a portfolio planning module, if you will, that we use within this framework. And finally, we're back to risk management, but all this comes back into asset analytics. So we have a very comprehensive asset analytic framework, dashboard, system that is bespoke to each particular site. And of course, customized and formed in a manner that they can not only digest it and understand it, but give them the actionable business intelligence that they can use to take advantage of what we're providing to them. So in final essence, you know, our process is taking the data standard that we create, using those agnostic systems that we talked about previously, taking the sensors, pushing that into a database in the cloud. Typically, there are on-prem sites, but typically pushing it into the cloud, moving from left to right, moving into the analytics, providing the insights, which are efficiencies and cross-functional trade-offs, right? And that's value identification is what happens there. And then we finally move into the decisions mode, actions, and then value realization, whether it's expense, capital, or risk or energy. So I hope I didn't talk too fast, but that's the elevator speech for Ikigai.
Well, thank you, because clearly I didn't have a full grasp on it, and I needed that lesson before I wrote up the newsletter item and said it was a software. So anyway, thank you for that. And I can see why it is useful. Clients can get their minds around it. It's comprehensive, but clear to understand.
Thank you.
And you said that was part of the reason, you know, this work with that is part of the reason why you're back with KBR, right?
Yes, indeed. Certainly. Yeah. There's parts about business development I love greatly. There are parts about it I don't love greatly. Typically the all-nighters and the 72-hour turnarounds, but and the rest of you that are in the federal space will understand that. But of course, yes, when they invited me back to be a part of their asset management group, this team that Jonathan Coburn has put together, I jumped on that straight away, of course.
Excellent. And then we reached out to you, and because the value and benefits from asset management program with our colleagues in Australia at the Asset Management Council has been going very well. And earlier this year, John Hardwick, who is a asset management superstar in Australia, did an event, and that was with our own Kimono Numa in his Los Angeles Community College District, and there were 325 people attending, which was the biggest event that the Asset Management Council has ever had on the web, and clearly ours too. John Hardwick liked that, and he has a program that's based on the value of asset management in a transportation organization. And we're not using the typical template. We're using just personal experience with the New South Wales transport system. And so we reached out to Mike Santos, who was at Denver Airport, but then also as the asset manager for the U.S. Antarctic. That's all about transportation.
Yeah.
Antarctic program is all about transportation. So we thought Mike would be a good person to talk with John, and wanted to just get a little bit of sample. We only got a little bit of time to tell us about Denver Airport stories and going down south. How about we start with what were lessons learned for asset management and transportation from the U.S. Antarctic program?
As it applies to asset management principles?
Oh, in your life, or yeah, whatever.
What were the lessons? Considering the fact that the National Science Foundation has officially begun the solicitation to recompete the United States Antarctic Program Antarctic Support Contract, I'm going to be very, very general, if you don't mind.
Oh, no, please. Yes, very general.
So I'll be 5,000 foot. All right.
Sure.
So here are the obvious areas that are focused on: supply chain, what we call transport and logistics, and transport being what you mentioned here before. It's one of the longest supply chains in the world. So as you can imagine, with only one resupply period, which typically comes sometime in January, the Antarctic program is incredibly dependent upon planning and schedule. I'll just be blunt about it. So they're dependent upon how they go about applying some of what we call the traditional asset management tenets in supply chain management and resupply. Obviously, I mean, you got to bring food, parts, you name it. It's like running small towns. You got 3 permanent stations. They all have the same challenges. They all have the same needs. So I mean, you've got to have power, heat, shelter, food, water. Otherwise, you can't survive there. So if you look at it through that lens and look at applying asset management principles to supporting those 5 things, you'll find that risk management, you'll find capital planning, you'll find project management, certainly, as we can all see in the public domain today with the rebuild of McMurdo, otherwise now known as AIRS. You can see during my period of time, I was involved in South Pole Station modernization, otherwise known as SPSM, with the new station commission in 2005. I was right in the middle of that. And all of that activity, including the transportation to get there provided by the U.S. military and others, all revolves around classic traditional asset management practice.
And how was any of the lessons you learned there brought with you over to Denver Airport? Did any of that translate?
Yeah, of course. So I'll go back to risk. Whereas many organizations just don't pay a lot of attention to it. They're in a reactive mode. They're in a we just deal with the unplanned, run from fire to fire mode. They don't inject a lot of efficiency effort, I call it, into their operation. And furthermore, they haven't identified, and this is foundational, but they haven't identified the assets they have. So when catastrophic failure occurs or shortcomings in the supply chain occur, shortcomings in even hiring occur, they didn't see it coming. So yeah, of course, I mean, that's kind of an Antarctic hallmark in a way, but knowing that those behaviors and those what I call instances exist, we built at DIA, we built a very comprehensive framework to identify that risk, to create the risk mitigation plans and the subsequent estimates. So our strategic planning groups, which I was a part of one with the hotel and the Great Hall, are able to look forward and say, hey, this is not only the OpEx you're going to spend, but here's the CapEx you're going to have to spend over time after you get this thing installed and commissioned. So that is probably the best example I can give you. I built facilities in Antarctica, or I was part of a team that did. So taking some of those lessons learned and applying them to the airport is quite valuable.
Excellent. So I'm always blown away by the size of the airport. What's the mileage?
Yeah, it's interesting statistics, right? So it's 53 square miles.
53.
It's 53 square miles. Second largest airport in the world by geographic space. Third largest airport in the world by what we call throughput, traveling public, in and out. Whether it's gate fees or whatnot, there's a whole different organization that measures that. And there's over 85,000 assets now that were in their CMMS Maximo in this case. When I left the airport, and they were adding probably 8,000 or 9,000 more as the final concourse build out was being commissioned. And they were going to somewhere in the neighborhood of 22 million to 23 million built square feet, which will be the largest public space built square foot airport in the world when it's done.
Wow. Wow.
We run all that through BIM, by the way. So our building information model, I mean, I could talk for an hour about that, on how we took that information on those built models and translated it into Maximo, and that would automatically do a lot of work for us before our maintenance planners got to it and started setting up the maintenance for our maintenance organization colleagues. Matrixed organization, to me, there were 720 people. I had a staff of 25.
Okay. So in terms of transportation asset management, as opposed to facilities or water, wastewater, etc., so many similarities. What kind of differences are there?
Oh, the differences. Well, I think you just pointed out one of the greatest differences. You've got the transportation infrastructure itself, whether it's train at the airport, whether it's 350 road miles that they had to oversee and plan for replacements of and practice asset management on. 6 active runways, with one of them being the longest in North America at 16,000 feet.
Oh.
If you just take the linear asset aspect of it and apply that to a definition that is really transportation at its core, it's quite different than straight up facility management, because you've got the facilities, the real property, and so on. But then you have all these other linear assets that translate directly into the transportation infrastructure itself, because the airport owns and has to maintain, lay salt down, and so on all of Pena Boulevard from I-70 all the way to the airport. That belongs to the airport. So
I've been on that road. You think you're at the airport and you got another 15 minutes.
That's right. Another 15 minutes to Kansas. That's right. So yeah, there's an immense transportation infrastructure. And then of course you get to the tarmacs and the ramps and everything else. And we can start talking about baggage and all those other sorts of things, but it's an immense transportation infrastructure built on top of a massive facility infrastructure.
Well, it seemed like you left it in positive shape. Things were moving forward. You accomplished quite a bit, had things in place before you left there.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with their progress on updating the SAMP. We were at the 5-year period at that time. When I departed. My successor is picking up the ball and working on updating their SAMP, which is going to be quite a bit more comprehensive, because it's going to transect into the airlines, which is quite a challenge.
Wow.
Yeah, quite a challenge. We can talk about the nuances of what airlines do and don't do at airports, but at the end of the day, yeah, I felt very good about where they were. They were on a very, very good path. They were sitting on a very solid foundation. Their maturity level had hit about 2.8, almost 3 before I departed. So I was pleased about that. And as long as they continue to keep the momentum, they'll continue to mature.
Excellent. Well, thank you for giving us an overview of the excellent asset management work that's being done at KBR, and for giving us a little taste of the transportation value and benefits from asset management discussion that we'll be having next Wednesday. Really appreciate you coming out and sharing information. Let me share my screen one more time to just go through the slides, and thank you for speaking today. Oh, that was not where it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be here. Thank you for speaking today, and thank our organizational members, including Onuma Inc., our patron members, Jacobs, ABS, Definitive Logic, and CGI. Our organizational members also, including CDV Systems, which is sponsoring this week's program, and all of our organizational members. Then next week on, oh, this is wrong. It's June 29th in Australia and June 28th in the US. Don't see that. I guess this is my week for mistakes. But then next Thursday on the 29th here, we are going to be having Steve Whiten, followed up by Imon Onuma and Cyril Verlay talking about what they did in Tokyo and how they're going to land that in Calgary. That's a really interesting program. And then the strategies for renewing federal facilities. We'll be talking about that. So thank you everyone for attending, and thank you, Mike, for being here.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, everyone.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.